Tuesday interview. Well, now the recording started. Welcome to the Tuesday interview. Every Tuesday for over 15 years, we are interviewing someone amazing. You are in the Trust Engine Mortgage Coach community, and today that amazing person is Ryan Grant. What's up, Ryan?
How you doing, Dave? Thanks for having me here, man.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So I think most people that follow the Mortgage Coach community and now Trust Engine community, you guys know Ryan Grant. But for anyone who doesn't know Ryan Grant, he epitomizes what it is to be a modern mortgage advisor. He, from a value standpoint, his goal is always to help consumers achieve financial freedom and achieve their financial goals. And I mean, he goes beyond even like some of the best advisors in America, like Ryan takes it as far as you can take it in helping people achieve the real American dream. And that is homeownership and financial freedom at the same time. So Ryan, welcome. You know, for any new loan officers that are hearing you for the first time, how would you like them to think about you?
Man, that's a great question. I think, somebody who is just extremely passionate about changing the way that we view ourselves as mortgage professionals. I think for so long we focused on selling debt, and some of the highest level mortgage advisors have kind of gotten away from that and gotten into the advice versus price strategy, which is you've obviously been championing for years. And I think we now need to try and figure out how we move into even an additional step, which is helping our clients proactively grow their generational wealth, right? And the advice is in transaction is incredibly important, but what we're really focused on right now is how do we show the consumer that they will be more generationally wealthy, like their kids will be wealthier because they made the decision to work with us as a mortgage company, as a mortgage professional, and that's really the change we're looking to make right now.
Right on. And how would you, just so people could get the value prop, because we're gonna talk about leadership, we're gonna talk about inspiration and how to turn a branch of loan officers into a branch of advisors, how to turn a region of loan officers into a region of advisors. But I want everyone to hear how you position yourself with a family and how that's different than a loan officer, so that people kind of know the North Star. Like, we're going to talk leadership and inspiration, but like, what is that North Star, and how would you describe a loan officer versus an advisor? I mean, I'm going to call it a mortgage coach, but a mortgage advisor. How does that sound? What is that different?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was just with some family friends that we had met out in Park City recently, and the guy was like, well, what do you do that's different than most other loan officers? Which I always love that question, right? Because it gives me an opportunity to really share what we're working towards. But the way I would frame it is, I would say, look, most loan officers, they're interested in selling you a loan, right? And they're going to try and do it at the best terms they can, and they're going to try and give you good customer service and close on time and do all the things that you expect, right? And I actually asked him, I said, I'd love to know, like, what do you expect when you work with a mortgage loan officer? And he goes, well, I just, good communication, close on time, like, give me the deal he says he's going to give me, like, good competitive terms. And I was just listening, and I was really let down, because it's what everyone expects from a loan officer, right? It's like the bare minimum. And I said, well, that's what makes us different and unique, right? Is that obviously we're going to do all those things, otherwise we wouldn't be in the business. But what we're really trying to accomplish is we want to help you and your family in every aspect of real estate or finance proactively for the next 30 plus years after the transaction is done, right? So we break down how we help a client into leading up to a transaction. So the before part of it, which is incredibly important right now, the during part of it, which is probably the least important, but still, something we have to focus on. And then ultimately, our goal is to take you from where you are to where we know you can be from a real estate and financial perspective with our constant proactive advice and guidance. And this is how we do it, right? And I started showing them all the things that we do and all the technologies we use and the systems we have and the team we have in place to help accomplish that. And he was like, wow, I've never heard of that before. He goes, I didn't know mortgage companies did that. And they've said, well, most don't, right? But it's, I think this is the future of where this industry needs to head, right? Because the average American is not going to use a financial advisor. They're not going to have an estate plan or will or trust. They're not going to understand life insurance. They're just going to try and buy a home and live in it and pay for it. And we have all the information as real mortgage professionals to help people navigate the changes and evolutions in their life, to introduce them to our partners who can help them with financial planning and estate planning and all the things that they need to really be a holistically well-rounded homeowner, a successful homeowner. And he was just really blown away by that thought and that process. And that always makes me proud, right? Because I want people to know that there is a better option when getting a mortgage.
Love it. Love it. So for any new loan officers watching this, I'm not, there's no magic way to say it. There's no one way to say it, but, some, terms that I use a lot, we talk about, advice versus price. One of the pillars we have at Trust Engine is coaching over selling. And at the end of the day, when you can go beyond the transaction, and the transaction is, here's your rate, here's your cash to close, here is your monthly payment. You're going to have a more sustainable career in mortgage if you're actually delivering value beyond that. Because at the end of the day, a lot of that can be automated. AI can get AI assisted lending can get people a transaction, but once you really know the numbers, and now again, here's the challenge, Ryan. People don't really know how valuable advice is until they see it. Unless you've really seen a total cost analysis where, hey, here's a loan with points, here's a loan with no points, here's a loan where you invested $300 a month into, some type of interest accruing account versus you prepaid your mortgage versus $300. Like, they really don't know it until they know it. They don't realize like the difference between good advice and bad advice is being in debt for the rest of your life and being financially stressed and owning a home, but doing it stressed versus maybe owning multiple homes, owning your principal residence free and clear, if that gives you peace and that's your strategy. People don't know. Any thoughts on how someone can quickly, see it and get it? I have some ideas on that, but I would love, what's the fastest way to enlightenment?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. You can't, you hear the old saying, you can't connect the dots looking forward, right? You can only connect them looking back. And so a lot of what we do is share examples of our previous client successes with our prospective clients, right? Because
stories.
You can give someone advice and in real time, they can see it and they can get it. And they can say, the Challenger sale where people go, oh, I didn't realize that, or I wasn't aware of that, or, oh, that's interesting, or I wouldn't have thought of that. That's the type of response you're looking for when you're working with a consumer, not, yeah, I knew that, or yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I get it, right? If that's the case, you're just giving people information they already have. But what you want to try and do, and what we try and do really purposefully, is expand someone's scope, right? Because when someone's going to get a loan or finance their home, whether it's a refinance or a purchase, they're not looking farther than typically 30 days out. And if you can expand their scope and show them how important the next year is, right, or the next 5 years, the next 10 years, and explain what's going to happen inevitably in their life and how you're going to proactively lead them through those things, and then show them examples of what you've done and feedback from clients. And you need to get people to live a little bit in the future in order to see what would happen if they didn't work with you. Right. And that's a skill that really needs to be trained and taught. It's not something that is easily done by people unless they have the ability to share story well.
Yeah, I love that. And at the end of the day, I always talk about stories and strategies. You tell a story where someone came to you thinking they wanted X, you showed them X and Y, and then always blow it up over time. Now look at Y, over 5 years, this family, one example is helping someone, buy a duplex or a triplex while going to college. You know, one family, while their kids went to college, rented a duplex or a triplex from a student whose family bought a duplex or a triplex. And flash forward 3 to 5 years, the family that helped their kid buy the duplex, one had about $1,000 a month in positive cash flow during the time. So they had, you know, they didn't have a housing expense. They actually were making $1,000 a month in housing expense.
Yep.
And one family had a, you know, $1,000 to $1,200 a month housing expense. One family, 3 years to 5 years later, based on appreciation rates, had enough equity in that duplex or triplex that it paid for college. Like, they had no college cost. And the other family, you know, had that college cost. They had that rent. And flash forward 10 years from now, that kid that they helped go through college had $1 million in net worth because they helped their kid buy, you know, and again, you could tell that story where it's house hacking, you know, help your kid buy a 3-bedroom house and rent out 3 bedrooms or 2 of the bedrooms to other students and rent out the couch to whoever. Airbnb the house. I think there's actually apps out there to, you know, couch surfing apps. But I think that those are just stories. So our push to everyone is get some great stories where you can tell a story, show a strategy, so the advice makes a difference. So Ryan, before we get into tactics on leadership, which I do want to pivot to pretty soon, you know, it's obviously a brutal market out there. You know, 63% of the homes in America start with 2% and 3%. What are interest rates today? You know, are they 7 or are they 6.8, 7.2?
Yeah.
So like 6.8 to 7.1.
Yep.
Depending on, okay. So let's just say they're 7%. You know, we all believe that they're going to come down. The question is when, how low, and how fast. When do you think rates will be in the 5s?
You know, based upon, I'm actually giving a presentation tonight to a database for a couple of realtors, and the research I was doing, that the Morningstar report just came out, right? And Morningstar thinks that they'll be in the 5s by 2024 and in the 4% range by 2025. You know, if you look at the kind of the growth chart of where mortgage originations are going to be going, and, you know, it's going to be higher in 2024 by about 50%, maybe 60% higher in 2025. You know, I think that if we keep seeing CPI trend the way that it looks like it will be, and obviously July 12th was a big number for us. You know, I would expect to be in the 5s probably sometime mid next year, maybe a year from now.
Yeah. And I only ask that because I see a lot of loan officers, you know, when they're quoting pre-approvals right now, where they're showing different options. Hey, here's with points, here's without points. And then they're showing an option at like 5.5%. And I just,
like a refi.
Yeah, you know, date the rate, marry the house.
Yeah.
We'll cover that. And I was just wondering when you thought, you know, marry the house was going to happen. So everyone, I'm going to pivot to the leadership conversation. What gave Ryan and I the idea to have this conversation is he just reached out of the blue a week or 2 weeks ago and says, hey, Dave, I noticed that you're promoting a webinar with Rob Chrisman and some other, you know, leaders. We've got Michael Frantoni, the chief economist from the MBA. We've got the chief economist from CoreLogics. And he's like, I want to make sure all my loan officers watch that. And what did you ask me before? Did you ask me for the slides ahead of time? What did you ask me for? You asked me for a bunch of stuff.
We just wanted, you know, we want all of our tribe coaching members to be there. And then we wanted our, you know, all of our loan officers at NEO to be there. And so we were going to kind of pivot around some of our normal scheduling and training to make sure who was going to be there. And then to do like a recap call afterwards, you know, and have you jump on and go through it and, you know, figure out not just what the information was, but how we tactically execute on that information, right? That's the part that a lot of people miss, right? Is there's a difference between learning and doing, right? Like you can watch a webinar and learn, but if you can't execute on what you just learned, right, and be able to put it into practice and do scripting around it and do training and, you know, create processes around it, then you've just learned something, which is better than not learning at all, but not nearly as good as learning and then doing something about it.
I love that. I love that. So let's again, anyone watching this, whether you're watching this in Zoom, put your questions in Zoom, you guys can also give us little reactions, give us a little thumbs up that you know how to use reactions. And if we say something you like, let us know. If you're watching this in YouTube, put your questions down below. But that struck me like, wow, that is leadership at the next level. I do think most loan officers are not prepared for the market we're in. And I don't think they're prepared for this decade. And I think that the loan officers, first of all, they're not loan officers. They're mortgage coach, mortgage advisors. And I think they're going to have an extraordinary decade in the mortgage business, and they're going to take market share from loan officers that are selling loans. So let's talk about, I think the title you came up with was the importance of leadership and inspiration to create change. Like that is what we're talking about. So walk me through how you think of that. Like what's your self-talk? And then what is the message you're delivering to the people that report to you and the people that you have influence over?
Yeah, the number one challenge that I think where there's a mental health crisis in the mortgage industry today, and it's a valid one, right? I mean, people's sense of self-worth, their sense of success, their sense of accomplishment was predicated upon how much money they made, how many loans they closed, right, where they ranked, all these things, right? And there's people that work 20 years and they have their best years ever in 2019, 2020, 2021. And it happened for long enough, right? That 3-year stretch where people started to really believe that like who they were was tied to that high level of production and creating that level of income. And
hey, real quick, I want to show some data to what you just said. So guys, I use a platform called MMI, and they have a little thing called loan officer tier data. In November of 2022, there were 3,500 loan officers doing over 300 loans a year. And there were about 100,000 loan officers doing no loans, 167 loan officers doing 1 to 30, anyways, you guys can all do the math. And then, flash forward to 21, holy shit, is like double. There's like 6,000 loan officers in America. I call them franchise players, doing over 300 loans, Now, guys, let's flash forward to today. Actually, I ran this on June. Wow. And there's like 406 loan officers in America doing 300 loans versus 6,000. There's like 1,000 doing 200 to 300, versus 8,000. There's 6,000 versus 31,000. And then, of course, call it the pain. There's over 240 loan officers doing no loans, 200,000 doing less than 30. Anyways, I wanted to put some math around it, guy, because, to your point, there's a lot of people. I mean, there's 200,000 people in massive pain, and there's just like 10 to 20,000. Now my takeaway is twofold. There's still 10 to 20,000 people making a really good living in the mortgage industry. So anyways, I just want to put a little data to what you were saying just now.
I love that. If you could share that information with me, I'd love to analyze it.
That's my own personal little ninja move. I'll share it with you, bro.
Thanks. The challenge is that those same 6,000 people that were helping 300 plus families a year, they're the same people. They just aren't the same in between their ears, right? And the thing that we're seeing is that people's past is really diminishing their opportunity for their future, right? Because look, if you were helping 300 plus families, it didn't come from nowhere, right? It came from years of accruing a database and realtor partners and enough visibility to where you had the ability to help that many families. That has changed, right? Like we have to start doing the hard work that got us to that place. We have to do it again, but we have to do it differently, right? Because the market isn't going to reward the same level of hard work and just sheer will that it did in 2011, 2012, 2013. Like you could really just outwork people in those years and do really well. I don't think you can do that anymore. I think you can work hard, but you have to be able to differentiate yourself, because there's people that are working really hard, but they just keep banging their head against the wall because they're losing deals to price. They're losing realtor partners because they can't effectively help them. Either their realtor partners aren't doing any business, or they're trying to find the cheapest lenders possible, or they're trying to find a lender that will, hire them and pay them so they can make some money. There's a lot of headwinds right now, but it creates a massive amount of opportunity. And anybody who's listening to this, whether you consider yourself a leader or not, you are one, right? You're a leader to yourself, you're a leader to your family, you're a leader to your coworkers, your team, right? The people that count on you and depend on you to show up. And if you legit have a team or people that you would look at you as a leader, you have to find that thing in them and you have to expose it. Right? Like I do this thing whenever I coach. I ask someone, hey, on a scale of, let's say you line up the top 100 loan officers in your market, right? Where would you rank in terms of value, not production? I don't care if you do one loan a year or 100 loans a year. Where would you rank in terms of value? Like if you were to look at those 100, how valuable are you to your clients and your business partners versus them? And oftentimes people will be like, I'm in the top 10, I'm number one, I'm definitely in the top 20, whatever the case may be. And that will give you a little bit of understanding of their self-confidence. But there's plenty of people that go, oh, I think I'm number one in terms of value. And I say, okay, well, are you acting like it? And they always it's a deer in headlights moment where it's like, oh, wow, no, I'm not. And I said, well, what does the number one valued loan officer in the market act like? Right? They show up to events, they're leading events, they're speaking at events, they're going to talk to the best realtors at open houses, they're doing content, they're showing people how they utilize MortgageCoach for advice, they show people how they're utilizing Sales Boomerang for database management. They're actively in front, creating opportunities. Right? They are the light when other people feel dark. They're the opportunist, not the defeatist. Right? But they're highly, highly visible. And they're visible because that level of confidence in knowing you're the number one most valuable loan officer in your market, again, regardless of production, you can't help but want to share that. Right? You can't help but want to be everywhere, right? And support and help everybody. But most people, they're stuck right here, right? Between the ears. They're the most valuable loan officer sitting in their chair, wondering why they don't have business.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this? I've heard this, little 1-minute rant by Nick Saban multiple times where have you heard the little message? It's on social media. I think it's called Nick Saban's 5 choices. Have you ever heard that?
No.
Well, I'll say it like Nick says it, and then I'll say it the way I will say it. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that. But
yeah,
the most successful, D1 football coach in history, I think. And let's just say to you, he's number 2 or 3, but one of the most successful. Not everybody's going to go with Alabama as being the best coach in times, but he's like people have 5 decisions to make. They could choose, bad decisions. They could choose average. They could choose good. They could choose excellence, and they could choose elite. And so it's like you get to have a choice. But if you want to, be excellent or elite, like it takes a different level of intensity. It takes a different level of commitment. It takes a different level of work ethic, et cetera, et cetera. And I think like in the mortgage business, if you're doing less than 12 loans a year, like that's bad. Like you're not, making a living. And did you see there's a lot of people doing no loans? And if you're doing, it looks like if you're doing, a couple loans a month, 30-ish, 24-ish loans, that's average. 60 loans. I've always felt like 60 loans is a really, like, I'll take loan officers to do 60 loans a year all day long. Like that's someone who knows how to do a loan. That's someone who's figured out the business. They're, no matter what market they're in, they're making a good living. That's good. Excellence, like, that's the other thing, everyone listening, it's like, we got to take away the numbers from 2020 and 2021, because
Yeah.
those are numbers when rates were at 2 and 3%. Hopefully that never happens again. So like, that was a spike. That was not an average. That's nothing that anyone should be comparing themselves to going forward for this entire decade. Like 100 loans a month, or excuse me, a year. That's excellent. Like, you're making a great living. You're excellent. And if you're doing 200-ish loans a year, you are elite in this business. And you just saw the numbers. There's only like 400 people doing over 300.
Yeah.
So, and they're the elite of the elite. So first of all, what do you think about those numbers? Do you think those numbers are fairly representative of bad, average, good, excellent, and elite?
Yeah. I would say they probably fall right in line.
So then I want everybody, first of all, come up with your numbers based off your standards. And then, you have a choice to make. Where do you want to play? And then I would say every manager listen to this, because I really want to pivot to, like, if you are a branch manager, if you are a regional leader, if you lead an organization of mortgage professionals, how are you going to help people achieve their level of greatness? How are you going to help them make the right decision for them? Remember, like, as leaders, we'd love all our people to be elite and excellent, but that if they don't want that for themselves, you're not going to get them that. So, help people make the decision and then help them manage it. And guys, in a few minutes, we'll get into tactics. Like, here are specific ideas in July going into August of 23 on how you can, upgrade your team. So what are your thoughts on how do you help loan officers get clarity and make a personal commitment that aligns with your organizational commitment, Ryan?
To me, it all starts and ends with someone's level of confidence in themselves. Because think about any sport, right? Let's say golf, for example, right? If you are highly confident as a golfer, guess what? You want to play a lot of golf, right? Because you're competitive, you want to win. If you're not highly confident as a golfer, you're like, oh, I'm good. I don't really want to go, right? Your buddies ask you if you want to go play a game. No, I'm okay. Like, you don't want to embarrass yourself, right? Like, almost any sport would be the same. It's the same thing that's happening in the mortgage space today. So many people have lost their confidence. When I was at Mastermind, I asked the audience, I said, how many of you feel like you've lost some confidence? Everyone had their eyes closed. Over 90% of that audience raised their hand. That means that, if that's indicative of the entire industry, that's over 90% of our industry that feels less capable to do their job than they were a year ago or 2 years ago, whatever the number was. And if you feel less capable, you're just not going to lean in and do as much, right? You're not going to, go present at the real estate event, right? You're not going to present to a group of first-time home buyers or current homeowners. You're not going to create content that talks about, why people should trip over themselves to use you. Right? You're not going to approach the industry in a way that's necessary. Right? Like, you're not going to give bold advice. Right? You're not going to sit across from a client and say, Dave, you and your family will be best served to utilize me and my team, not just for now, but for the next 30 years. And let me show you why. You're not going to say it with that level of belief, right? That level of passion. And it's going to show in almost everything you do from a professional perspective. And then that bleeds into personal. So all we're trying to do is create the most confident mortgage professionals on the planet.
I
Right?
love
And that starts with a really good understanding of the market, which is why I thought your upcoming event was so with Chris Min and that whole deal was incredible, right? Which is why we are constantly trying to understand interest rate direction and market forces. It's why we are adamant that every single client gets a TCA every single time. It's a non-negotiable to be a part of our organization. Each client gets a dreams and goals call. Each client has a full consultation, right? Face to face, kind of like we're doing now, or in person. Like we have some clear non-negotiables that will help people with that confidence, because you start doing it enough and you start experiencing it, and then you start seeing how valuable it is, not just to you, but to the consumer. And then it just snowballs, right? But the key for me is training, right? And anyone watching this, just ask yourself, what's your ratio of working to training? For any of you who've gone to any of Jocko Willick's, summits or the events that he does, SEALs train about 99% of their career to maybe deploy 1%.
Right.
Since I've been in the mortgage industry, it's been the exact opposite. We work 99% of the time, and we might train to get better or improve our value maybe 1% of the time. And that has to change. That has to flip-flop. I think right now we're probably 60-40 training to execution. And that training is pretty intense, right? It's watching game film, right, of our team that talks to, we're watching our team talk to clients and present to them. We're watching them talk to realtors and present to them. We're, getting feedback. We're, hey, what would you have done here? How would you have said this differently? Or what direction should I have taken this? Or did I give the appropriate financial advice based upon this person's situation? What would you have done differently? How can we help our realtor partners with leadership, lead generation, conversion, fulfillment, post-closing, and retention? Like that level of showing up every day to improve makes you more and more confident. And then when you see your fellow, colleagues do the work, and you go, man, like I remember 2 months ago, he could barely, he didn't even know how to spell consultation, and now he's knocking it out of the park. Like if he can do it, I can do it. Right. But we have to really, and this is what I've been so proud to be a part of with the Mortgage Coach and Trust Engine community, is that you've been training not just through your platform, but through community for so long, right? And if you just held trainings, they would be good. But the fact that you hold trainings through community, and other people start to say, wow, like that guy wasn't that productive 2 years ago, but now that he's doing all these things and he's been implementing what he's learning, look at what he's doing. And that community lifts each other up. And we're not doing enough of that in the mortgage industry today. Definitely not within, companies or groups. Like you still do an amazing job at it, which we're all super thankful for. But, internally as an organization, like every organization needs to start to create community in training, because that will develop the confidence in the organization. Like the DNA of the organization will change.
Yeah. No, I love that. So kind of the North Star in your perspective, and I do not disagree. It is confidence. And to have confidence, one, you have to have good strategies, strategies and tactics that win. And then you need to train on them. I mean, that is why I started doing, mortgage coach interviews a decade ago, is, one, I had figured for me to grow Mortgage Coach into the business I wanted and to have the impact socially that I wanted, I needed to change how loan officers thought. And, back then in the day, loan officers thought that, being a great loan officer was just closing a loan on time, being really smart about underwriting guidelines, which, by the way, you need to close loans on times. You need to know underwriting guidelines. You need to be a good, operator as a loan officer. But I believe that the best operators, were the best advisors. They were giving advice beyond the price of a loan, and you got to train. And that's, by the way, I love when you reached out to me, it was just like a dream come true. I was just like, wait, because my goal is to create this content. Obviously, the loan officers that watch it, they're getting inspiration and training, but then to have a manager, say, hey, you know what, let's do a branch managers meeting around it. Let's train on this. Like that's a big part of my why, is to, create content and value in game film for trainers. And then you took it one step further and you're like, hey, Dave, I saw something on the calendar in 2 weeks. I want to edit my schedule that I'm doing at the company, and I want to bring this. I mean, that is like the ultimate amplification of what we do here. So let's break it down tactically for anyone, listening to this on whether it was a podcast that you heard and you want to do training, whether it was a mortgage coach content, and then you guys create a lot of your own content. I mean, I've interviewed, countless people from the company you work at, and, but let's just say you picked a piece of content that you want to train on. Walk us through, kind of give us, like, pretend that you're coaching coaches. You got an audience of people that lead other loan officers. Walk us through how you would train on something.
Yeah, the first thing we do is we just look at the necessity in the marketplace, right? And then we ask ourselves, what's the most impactful thing that we need to be training on? And we train every single Tuesday, every other Thursday, and then usually ad hoc, 1 or 2 times throughout the week. And so we're putting in probably 4 or 5 hours of training per week for our team.
Real quick, one of the 2 things that really took me from my interview with Shot Minoshi, and the first time I interviewed with him, it came out that he trains 4 times a week. He trains 4 times a week. And one of the things that was my biggest surprise when I have spoken for Rocket Mortgage multiple times, you always hear that, oh, they're a technology company that does mortgages, or it's because they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing, which, by the way, that is part of the Rocket magic.
Doesn't hurt, right?
But they trained. Like, I could not believe how they had the company organized, and, like, on a floor, they had multiple floors, and each floor was like a sales department. About 20% of that floor was training, and so, like, just want to, put an emphasis on the best of the best. They train. So anyways, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, in what world does that not have? Like, name one successful, sports team, one successful business, one successful person that doesn't constantly improve their craft. And for some reason, the mortgage industry is never been very focused on that. Or it's like, well, we know how to do mortgages, and we stay up to date on guidelines, and that's kind of the extent of it. Which is, right now the mortgage industry is evolving more than it ever has, right? Mainly because of necessity, like we have to. And so back to your question is, we will look at something, let's say when it became really challenging, rates went up and affordability stuff, we said, okay, we need to train on seller buy down, and we need to create a cadence, and we need to create, content around it. And so we prep it. We let everyone know it's coming on Tuesday. We let everyone know, what they need to be, studying for in advance. And then, we do the training, we keep it in our training platform. And then we ask people, a lot of times we'll run contests. Josh just did one the other day where, people get to, go stay in a house Airbnb somewhere for, for a weekend or for a week, if they give us game film of them actually doing it live with a client, with a realtor partner. And we encourage people to then give feedback, because that's the execution. There's another problem with this industry is people will learn all day long. They'll learn, and they're at every webinar you've ever seen. They're at every mortgage coach thing. They're at every training. They're training more than they should, but they don't have the confidence to actually go execute it. I believe it takes seeing someone else do it real time in order to give someone else the confidence to say, okay, I can do that. Because I don't know how many trainings I've done where I said, oh, just go do this, that, or the other, it works. And they go, I don't know. I'm sure it might, but I don't know. But then they see me actually do it. I'll send them the recording of me presenting to a client or to a realtor, and they go, I can do that. That didn't seem that hard. And they just memorize what I said, right? And then they spin it and make it their own. And that level of community sharing is the world that, most people will have to live in, because you need to see it done before you can do it. So that's really our cadence. Is every week we're looking at, okay, what's the biggest change? Like, let's say there's a market movement. Let's say there's a new product that came out. Let's say there's a new article that is going to be seen by, millions of Americans that we know we're going to contend with, good, bad, or indifferent. We're always trying to say, what cutting edge thing can we do to get a slight edge? right? And then the biggest thing we train on, Dave, and the most important thing that I would encourage anyone to train on is very simple, but oftentimes massively overlooked, which is the question, why you? It's a simple question, but one that people cannot answer, and I don't understand why, with any sort of differentiator. So if I say, hey, Dave, I was referred to by my realtor. I'm already pre-approved with XYZ Bank. They have great customer service. You know, the guy's been really good. They have super low interest rates. You know, he's been in the business for 20 years. But she said I should call you. You know, why you? And a number of times I see people freeze when that question is asked, or say the same thing, which is, well, we close on time. There's a reason Mary referred you to me, because we're, you know, there's certainty and you have great customer service and we have competitive interest rates. It's like, you just said all the same things that person said, right? Like, nothing about what you just told me makes you any different than the person I've worked with in the past or the person I'm working with currently. Like, what value are you going to bring to me or my family? Right? How are you going to make me better off than if I didn't use you? Like, what is it you're going to offer me outside of potentially being the cheapest, which, by the way, nobody wants to be, or nobody should be. And if you can't answer that question, if you're not solid, like if you're not waiting for that pitch to show up like a 30-mile-an-hour softball that you're going to knock out of the park, that's the one thing you need to just drill and drill and drill and drill. And then find the confidence. Like, I was hoping you'd ask me about what my rate was. I was hoping you'd ask why you. I was hoping you'd say, compare yourself to other lenders, because it gives me an opportunity to tell you why you would be 1,000 times better off working with our group than anybody else.
I love it, brother. This is so guys, I couldn't be more pumped to have you right now doing this. My challenge to if you're a loan officer watching this, like, this is a season of training. And, you know, obviously if you work with Ryan, you know, they put on a lot of training, and they also shine a light on Mortgage Coach. I'm doing a training with a lot of our customers right now, where we're doing what we call speed to need training. You know, we're I'm calling it the Mortgage Coach 10X strategy. And the way I'm approaching the training is, this month I'm going to help, and like, let's say I'm working with a company and I'm doing this speed to need training. The goal is 1 extra loan this month and 1 new realtor, that because we worked on some of the hottest strategies in the market, 1 extra loan, 1 extra realtor this month, but doing it in ways that are sustainable. Like 1 + 1 can equal 10 if you created some new processes that you can scale and you can duplicate, so that, you can get an extra loan every single month, and you can get an extra realtor every single month. But you've got to do that. So one thing I want to do for everyone that's watching this, if you are not already in what's called the Savage Insights Mobile Club, you can either just put your camera on this and sign up, or you can text 949-799-0837. I'm going to be giving at least 1 homework assignment every week. Call it speed to need training assignment every week. There might be more from week to week. I'm also going to dedicate these Tuesday calls. So, I'm still going to interview someone amazing, but it's going to be a more intentional training, like where we are literally, here is a tactic and a strategy to get 1 extra loan, or get 1 extra loan in a realtor this month. So literally, for at least the next 4 to 5 weeks, we're going to do speed to need training on this platform every Tuesday. We're going to drive that. So, sign up here. Also, if you go to savageinsights.com, Ryan, yesterday, if you would have gone to this, Ryan would have been at the very top, because that was my next call. Right now, my next one is a webinar on this Thursday, where I'm going to be interviewing ahead of 2 heads of production. Kevin Perennial goes by KP, and Greg Shear. I'm going to be interviewing them. So there's a link to sign up for that. The webinar that Ryan called out that kind of started this whole conversation, it's the second link. But you can always count on what's at top is what's next, and then speed to need training book. So this is an actual playbook where it's a tool for loan officers and managers who want to turn loan officers into mortgage coaches. So make sure you check this out. We'll be updating it along the way. So Ryan, any comments on that before we kind of keep drilling down on tactics?
I mean, if you're at an organization that doesn't provide a ton of training, or even if you are, I mean, what a phenomenal resource, right? Like, I was looking for my phone when you were saying it, but it's too far away for me to go get and take a picture of that thing, but I will definitely be utilizing it. And just to have it all in that one place and having a playbook, especially in 2023, I don't think it's ever been more important. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. We'll text you the phone number so you get signed up. And
Cool.
again, we'll put it in show notes. If you're watching this on our YouTube, we'll have a way to sign up for that speed to need training. And basically it's going to be the Tuesday call. So it's not going to be a link. It's going to be Tuesday at 9:00 for the next 4 to 5 weeks. I'll be interviewing someone, and we'll be doing some type of a training and some type of a lesson that will do everything that I just described. So Ryan, we got a little less than 15 minutes left. What do you want to make sure, you came to this call with ideas, concepts, things you want to share, anything that you want to make sure we get out?
I think for that speed and, yeah, I think for that speed and need training, one of the things that we've been really doing successfully right now is helping our realtor partners understand the difference between can, should, and must. I don't know if you've heard me talk much about that, but we're basically asking our agents, like, how many clients have you worked with that have been pre-approved that didn't buy a home? And everyone in the room raises their hand, right? And I said, well, why is that? Right? Like, they obviously can. They have a letter that says they can. Why didn't they? And everyone, gives me their advice. Well, they were priced out, or blah blah blah. And I say, no, that's not why. Right? The reason is because they know they can, but nobody's taken the time to tell them why they actually should. Right? Nobody's like given them a consultation that's shown them that. But ultimately, what people haven't done is gone from should to must. Right? Like, a really good mortgage consultant will help a client realize, oh crap, I must buy a home, or I'm going to get passed by this train. And that's one of the things, I created this TCA in advance of this call, which is, it's a rent versus own TCA that shows, rent increase. But I was doing some research prior to this, and just in Irvine, California, rents have gone up 19% year over year on 3-bedroom homes, 21% on 1-bedroom homes, about 12 or so percent on 2-bedroom homes. And I'm using like a 10% rent increase, and I'm thinking, man, that's crazy. Like, it's a $4,000 monthly rental payment going to $4,400 a month, right, in a year. Which is, I have rental properties that are doing just that, so I know that that's actually happening. We need to show someone, look, this is not your choice. And this is where the bold advice comes in, right? If we show them a TCA, and then we show them what the future rent looks like compared to buying a home, and then we show them the projections for, look, CoreLogic has 10% price increase, home price increase in 2023. Zillow has 9%. Black Knight's 5%. Right? So even if we use the lowest number, right, which most people aren't expecting, we say, look, imagine this, right? There's going to be a world where you not only can't afford to buy the homes because they're going up so much in value, and we show them the demographics and why that is, and supply and demand, but then we show them the rental price increases and say, there's a world where within a couple of years, you can't afford to rent where you want to live. Right, which means you're going to be forced to move somewhere else that you don't want to be, with school systems and maybe away from family. Like, this is not your, unfortunately, Mr. Smith, I'm really sorry to say this, but this is not your choice. Like, you think you have a choice whether you want to buy a home or not. I don't think you do. And let me show you why. And I'm sorry if this comes off wrong, but this is actually my job. My job as a mortgage advisor is to help my clients make really intelligent, educated decisions in the face of fear and emotion.
Right.
Right. So if I let you decide not to buy a home, or if I let you decide to lowball every offer that you come across because you want to get a deal, or I let you figure out I'm going to wait for the market to crash. If I allow you to make bad logical decisions or financial decisions, I'm not doing my job. All right, so let me show you this total cost analysis that really shows you what I'm talking about here with rent increases and with home price increases. And let's make a decision together around this. Right, and that's where when I show realtors that, and then I ask, so, raise your hand if every single person you're working with realizes that they must buy a home today. And not a single hand goes up, and you can see all the light bulbs go on. They're like, oh shit, well, my clients only think they can buy a home, right? Because they have a piece of paper they got in 8 minutes online that says that they're pre-approved. So if we can't take someone from, well, I can, to, oh, I really should, to I absolutely must, we're not effective at our job, right? And our job definitely has changed in that regard.
Well, I'm going to be using that a lot. The can't, should, must, and you're right. No one is buying a home in this market just because they can. And I mean, I can't remember the data on it, but there's like 24 million people that can and want to buy homes, but unless you can help them go into should and get into the must bucket, they're not buying. And to me, that's a valuable loan officer. Do you have a TCA you can share with us on that? That would be an example of how you would get someone. And by the way, guys, this is getting to the speed of need. Like you need to get someone to must buy in this market. So we will incorporate this in our training, and I'll try. I don't want to promise next Tuesday, but within the next 2 Tuesdays, we'll do a full-on training on this where we do some scripting. I bring in one of our, mortgage coach success managers, and we'll do a whole training on what Ryan's going to show us right now.
Yeah. So again, this is, I before we start, I use the term basics with you, and you're like, well, basics, what we need, what we're teaching right here. So I just showed the average rent. Average rent for a 3-bedroom apartment in Orange County is $4,300, unfortunately. And then there's a lot of people, like I was telling you, I have a tenant in one of my properties. It's a 3-bedroom, and he's paying $4,500 a month, and he wanted to see if he could buy something. So he connected with our team, and he still is not in the position, right, to be ready to do that. But we're working with a strategy, and he knows he must buy a home, right? Because he's seeing rent prices go up. He wants his kids to be in a certain school, and we're having to show him this. So what he's going to do is going to be very different than somebody else who wants to buy a home, right? If you want to buy a home, you'll think, well, I'll do it when I get around to it. If you realize you must buy a home, you start looking at parents, you start looking at co-signers, you start looking at, gift funds, you start looking at everything possible to not let this real estate market run you over, right? And so being able to show them a simple look, you could be 800, 900, or $1 million, right? And you show the ultimate differences in price, but then you come down here and they say, well, it's only, less than $500, it's $430 a month difference, right, between renting and buying. But here, this is locked in. This is going to skyrocket. If you just look over 5 years, like, people don't know what they're going to pay for rent in 5 years. And the reason why is because it's a terrible exercise. Nobody wants to go through and think, well, how much am I going to pay in a year in rent? But then with rent increases, how much am I going to, like, no one's doing that math. They just want to bury their head in the sand. When you show it to them in this way, it becomes a blinding flash of the obvious. Like, oh my goodness, I'm going to pay $318,000 just to rent a place for the next 5 years, right? As opposed to, investing principal into a property, and then ultimately, net worth in 15 years. It's just, this is the stuff that gets people, like, we are by nature, human beings are not very good auditory learners, right? So I could tell you this, but it would go over your head. But when we get to visualize something, it's really hard to forget, right? And especially with this level of, this gratitude, or like the gravitas, like the amount of importance this carries in somebody's life, you can't unsee this, right? And then I'd go to Rent Cafe, or I'd go somewhere, like, I just show, like, look, 9%, 23% 1-bedroom, 19% plus on 2 bedrooms. Like, this is what your future looks like if you continue to rent. And then, if we go to, this is the thing I was prepping that shows, again, 10% appreciation in Zillow, 9% or with the CoreLogic. So I show them all these things and say, look, like, let's get back to, does this really make sense for you to do what you were thinking of doing?
Boom.
And
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to
I was
cut you
gonna
off.
say, this is where, like, I would then ask, like, hey, you came in here. We knew when you came into this consultation you could buy a home, right? We had the dreams and goals call. I told you that everything looks good, that you had the ability to do this. At this point, do you believe you should buy a home? And I want to hear their answer. And they go, yeah, it seems pretty obvious. And then I'm going to ask, like, that last question. I'm going to say, Dave, I don't want to overstep here, but I think it's actually imperative for you and your family that you must buy a home. Do you understand why? Like, does that make sense? And if they say yes, then I've done my job well. If they haven't, then we have some more educating to do and some more explaining to do. We have to show people well into the future, right? Because well, okay, I'm pre-approved. Maybe I'll buy a home when I get around to it. Like, nope, that's not your decision, right? The market will make that decision for you.
So, bro, this has been amazing. We're gonna create some micro content around that. And we're actually, like when I saw you just do that, can, should, must, like we're gonna have a whole Ryan Grant, can, should, must training, some micro content right here. So thank you, brother. If you could you put a link to that total cost analysis in chat real quick, just
Yes,
so
sir.
anyone that's live, anyone that's watching this in video will get it. Also, notice that, guys, this is an education market. It's going to be like this for a decade. He's got some slides, he knows a website. He's got rent.com, so he's able to have the rent.com conversation in Orange County, California. And if he was talking to someone that lived in Salt Lake City, he'd be having the Salt Lake City conversation with them. He's got slides, and then he's hyper personalizing, hyper localizing for them with a total cost analysis. Guys, this is the way to win. And we're going to train on this for any executives that are Trust Engine enterprise clients. I mean, we've got a waiting list now of people that want to do this Mortgage Coach 10X strategy training. But, reach out to me, Dave, at Trust Engine, if you want some type of an enterprise training offering. For all you individual loan officers, I'm going to focus on this because I do think this is a season of training. I think when rates start to come down, it's not going to be like 2020 or 2021, but it's going to be a stronger purchase market. We're going to have some refis. Make sure your database is got a trust engine wrapped around it, so that not only are we alerting who is in the money for a loan, but it's like your digital assistant. We're creating a total cost analysis. We're creating content that helps you deliver advice. We're creating content that helps you be more than a loan officer. It helps you be a mortgage coach. Ryan, any closing thoughts as we wrap this up?
I think my last thought would just be, if you're going to train on something and you have a takeaway on this, and hopefully that thing is your answer to why you, right? And a big part of your confidence in how you answer that question should be your engagement with Trust Engine. And this is not a sales pitch, or I'm not, Dave didn't ask me to do this. When you know that you can give really visibly appealing and connected advice to your strategy, and you know that you can utilize tools like Sales Boomerang and all the tools I have within Trust Engine to proactively manage somebody's liabilities and help them make smart decisions on a proactive, consistent basis, that's something that 99 out of 100 loan officers will not be able to say, right? And very few, even less, will be able to do, right? And so part of why you needs to be the technology you use, needs to be the systems that you create and the skill set that you have within those systems. And that alone should take your confidence score up another 10 points, right? And so drill down on that, really understand what makes you different, what makes you unique, and what makes you the most valuable mortgage professional on the planet to all the people that get to work with you. And Dave, I just want to say thank you for having me on, and thanks for providing this platform to help us all with our confidence.
I love what I do. I'm going to play a little, 40-second clip from an interview with Shay Jenkins. Last year was her second year in the business. She did $53 million out of Denver, Colorado.
Wow.
And guys, let's see how she's recruiting realtors in this market. Real quick, and then we're wrapping it up.
I was going after this huge, one of the top agents in Denver. And I had been trying since I was an assistant, I had been trying to get this person. And finally, the poor girl gave me a break and was like, Lord, like, here you go, take this one lead. And I took the lead and I did a mortgage coach. And I was just like, you know what, why not? I'm going to CC the agent on here. And then that's when the agent picked up the call and she's like, are you serious? This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, what, mortgage coach? And I was like, you're the top agent. You've never seen this before? And she's like, absolutely not. She's like, this is amazing. She's like, would you be able to do this with all my buyers? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, that's so cool. And again, in her head, I think she was thinking, I'm up all night creating this massive presentation with all these numbers and graphs. And I got her business and she's one of my top agents now.
Guys, that's how it's done. And we're going to train you how to do that. Make sure you show up. Ryan Grant, appreciate you, my brother. This call,
Likewise, buddy.
it's a wrap. Take care, everybody. See you at the next one.